have something really controversial to talk about. And this might not be the case for everybody, but I truly think that one of the reasons why women don't have as much sex as men, or don't want to have as much sex, or, think about it, consider it more, I think one of the reasons is that sex is a chore for women, the way that it is displayed to us, and this has become very obvious as I've had my OnlyFans for longer. The kind of things that men are asking me for are things that don't come naturally to me. And it has nothing to do with me not being sexual or me being a prude. I can be as sexual, I can be as turned on, I can be in maximum sex mode, and I still won't do those things. I can be okay with putting my naked image, or, you know what I mean? It's not a matter of me trying to limit my borders. It's just not what I do. So here's the thing, there's so many boundaries for women that are just fake boundaries, and then there's so many things that we would like to do that we don't get to do, and there's just a massive misunderstanding, I think. For example, one of the things, I can think of a few examples which I will give you. Men really like having sex with a lot of light. Women don't. So naturally, if you ask to see me while you're having sex with me, that's not something that's going to turn me on. And I know that that's not something that's going to turn on most women. Most women prefer the dark, just because, and it's not about us not wanting to be observed because we feel lack of confidence or whatever. It's just, I get more focused in my brain, and I can kind of just focus more in my feelings if I'm not seeing. Women actually have stronger sensory information in our nerves. Like, we are better at taste, we're better at touching, we're better at smelling, hearing. We are genetically better using our senses. So that makes sense, whereas I guess men need really a visual cue. Another thing, just the way that we have sex or the way that we do things, there's so many misunderstandings. Like, this is something that I really want to write about because I think it deserves a good investigation. But our sex organs, the way they're placed, like a woman, you have to come to her from the front. That's all I'm going to say for now. It just doesn't give you the same pleasure if you go in other places or in other, from other angles. It just doesn't. So if sex becomes this thing where you have to do it from angles that we just don't get as much feedback, then we're not going to like it as much. Another thing that's a big misconception, if you observe the animal kingdom, you will notice that the female animal always stays static during sex. That's for a reason. It's for the reason that, when stuff comes in, if you want to have a baby, you don't want to spit it back out. So you have to stay kind of still. And if you look at, I think, every animal and insect, the guy kind of bonds, and then the female just kind of like stays still. And that's not because the female is lazy. And it happens to women as well. Like, I've noticed, I don't particularly like moving. Like, I can move just like I can move doing any activity. I'm an athletic girl. I can move. But moving is going to give me less pleasure. And that's just a fact. If I have to focus on doing physical exercise while I'm having sex, so like I'm bouncing, or I'm like, doing things that I don't really need to do to have sex, then I'm gonna feel less in terms of sexual pleasure. And that's another thing, that we're not allowed to have sex in the way that we would like to. So I find myself, every time I have an opportunity, like, oh, I might be having sex tonight, I find myself going through all the things that I have to overcome. And it just becomes a chore at the end of the day. The amount of stuff that I have to do differently than how I would really like to do it. Or like, I like getting massaged. I think every woman likes kind of being touched for a long time, or I've always said the way to turn a woman on is to just like rest your hand on her for a long time. It takes a while, not just to go into an orifice, because that's all it is. The orifice is not where we feel pleasure. Again, that's going to be more part of my written investigation, but I just wanted to do a video to kind of introduce the subject and to say this right away because it came to my mind. And nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it in a light-hearted, open, non-resentful, I don't have a problem with this. I mean, I have a problem in the sense that I would like to have sex more than I do. I'm really not promiscuous, but I think part of the thing is because I'm so misunderstood. And guys constantly want to see me masturbating and doing stuff that, for example, and this is linked to the stillness that I was talking about earlier, the way women masturbate in private to get the maximum satisfaction is not how they masturbate in porn. And it's not a way of masturbating that can show off your body, or like if I were to show somebody myself masturbating, I would be underneath a sheet in the dark, pretty much completely still, with my legs completely clamped together on one side. That's not really a visual that you can show to people. So it's like when people ask me to see me masturbating, I know what they're imagining. They're imagining me with my legs spread, a spotlight on my freaking genitals, and me touching just like flesh that doesn't feel anything, and then basically faking an orgasm. That's not something I'm interested in doing. So I don't know, it's just there's something about that does kind of trigger me a little bit, because it's just so fake, and I feel like we're just continuing this narrative of stuff that doesn't benefit us. And I don't know if it benefits men, does it? I mean, if we can create content, I guess, that can give pleasure to men, that's great. But is the way of giving pleasure to men always going to be a way that is not real, that is not authentic? Isn't there something a bit wrong with that? And again, I know that, and I did a bit of a poll in my Instagram. I know that some women, obviously everybody's different, and I know that some women like to masturbate that way, or like some women like to finger themselves with just one finger. For me, that does nothing. So like for me, the whole word fingering for me does nothing. Like I would call it arming. I need something bigger surface area. I don't use my fingers at all. So it's like the whole thing, it just doesn't respond to how I do things and how I would like to do things. And every time I have a boyfriend, I have to find myself kind of explaining everything from the beginning and saying, no, this is how you do it, this is what you have to do. And it's such a chore. And it's so weird when you're having sex for the first time with somebody. You have to just put up with a lot of stuff that you don't particularly want to do. From all the women that I have known, and I've known some very sexual women and friends, and just from being a girl and communicating with other girls, I can tell you that the majority of girls that I have spoken to, these are not even things that we mention, because it's understood that we don't have sex the way everybody thinks we do, or the way men thinks we do. And we don't even talk about it. We don't even embark to change that. Instead, we seem to embark to create more sex toys, which who cares? And we seem to embark on how to use your fingers for maximum pleasure. It's just that's such minutia within the scheme of things. It's like there's so much wrong just generally, and we're really going to make videos about how to finger yourself. I don't even use fingers. It's just we have to go way back to kind of investigate this properly. And the fact that people still don't know where ejaculation comes from. I wrote a piece about that, about female ejaculation, and I have a podcast, so go listen to that if you're interested. But I don't know, there's just so many misconceptions, and yeah, it's just a whole, I think we need a whole shift of perspective to understand things in a different way. And we need really more women talking about this and saying this clearly, and not in a polite, oh, I want to say it, but on the other hand, I still want to like look sexy, because we know what we need to do to look sexy. We basically need to fake it, and we do that, but it's just, I don't think it's helping us at the end of the day. So I think it's really nice to be able to talk about what really turns us on, which is not a step-by-step guide on how to have an orgasm, touching places where honestly we have no nerve endings. It's like our nerve endings are at the front, not like on our flesh. That's just like touching your belly button. It just doesn't, you can do it, sure, but you don't feel anything. So I don't know, it's weird. I actually remember the first time I ever had sex, I was expecting it to feel a different way. Like I was expecting to feel pleasure from, you know, the act of penetration. And then I learned that the act of penetration doesn't give you pleasure inherently. They have to actually push where your clitoris is. So that's what gives you pleasure, the pushing, or like if the man is at the front. I will go into more detail when I write about this. But just examples like this, I just feel like it's completely, like it's so missing the point that I can't even get into debates. The kind of debates that I'm seeing in social media is just like, goes over my head. I hope you're all well, and feel free to comment and tell me your ideas. I know probably a lot of people don't want to talk about this so explicitly, but I'm really comfortable talking about this. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, my website. I now have my blog inside my iambarbarella.com website, so I have all of my art stuff all together in there. I found that a lot more cohesive. I'm starting to give classes on Zoom, so feel free to sign up and see me, and I want to really expand that into something else, something more cognitive awareness, etc. Getting high without doing drugs. I'm really healthy right now. I'm really into it. And yeah, I'll talk to you later. See you soon.